Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today, we're embarking on a really ambitious journey, right into the heart of a nation that's, well, constantly defied, easy definition.
Hmm.
Just imagine a country born from this incredibly contentious, really rapid partition, a place that has cycled, dramatically between democracy and military rule.
Yeah, navigated civil war, engaged in multiple conflicts, developed nuclear weapons.
Exactly. All while trying to forge this unique identity on the global stage. It's quite a story.
It really is. And our mission for this deep dive is basically to offer you a shortcut, a way to truly understand Pakistan.
Right. We want to get beyond the headlines.
Precisely. To unpack the pivotal moments, the forces that have shaped its history from, its birth in 1947 right up to today.
So you can grasp the underlying currents, the challenges that keep coming up, and also the surprising resilience of this, well, critically important country.
And to do that, we've distilled insights from a comprehensive historical overview. We pulled out the most vital nuggets for our conversation.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Starting at the very beginning. The genesis of a nation, partition, and its immediate, often brutal aftermath.
Right. The very idea of Pakistan itself,
Yeah.
it wasn't a single clear vision from the start.
Mm.
No, it emerged from really intense debate among Muslims, especially after the 1942 Quit India movement.
Okay.
So on one side, you had groups like the All India Azad Muslim Conference and many Deobandi ulema scholars who were strongly advocating for a united India. They emphasized something called composite nationalism.
Composite nationalism, that's an interesting phrase. What did that actually mean for them?
Well, it basically meant that India's diverse religious communities, including Muslims, could form one unified nation. Their view was that Muslim identity was primarily, spiritual and cultural.
Not necessarily needing a separate political state.
Exactly. They weren't arguing for a separate territory. It was more about a shared, inclusive Indian identity.
So a much more complex picture than sometimes presented. Real disagreements among Muslim leaders.
Definitely. But then you had the pro-separatist Muslim League, led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah. They clearly mobilized huge support.
And some Barelvis, too, another major Islamic school of thought, felt that, well, cooperation with Hindus just wouldn't work. They pushed for separation.
Correct. And Jinnah had this pretty controversial concept that highlights the stakes.
Yeah.
His hostage population theory.
Okay, what was that?
It was his belief, his argument, that the safety of the large Muslim minority left in India would be guaranteed by, essentially, the Hindu minority in Pakistan becoming a hostage population.
Wow, that sounds incredibly cynical.
It does. The idea was that this Hindu minority in Pakistan would face violence if Muslims in India were harmed. So it was meant as a kind of deterrent.
Was that widely known or accepted? And how do historians see its actual impact?
Well, Jinnah did articulate it in speeches leading up to partition. It wasn't universally accepted, no, but it certainly showed the level of distrust and fear. And historians generally agree that while it reflected maybe a desperate concern for Muslims in India, it tragically kind of contributed to an environment where violence against minorities on both sides became horrifyingly real, not really a deterrent at all.
Which brings us to the speed of it all. Just how fast this partition happened. Lord Mountbatten, the last viceroy. He was initially supposed to oversee independence by June 1948, right? And the goal was united India.
That was the initial mandate, yes. But Mountbatten completely changed the timeline. He decided, very swiftly, to transfer independence much earlier, before 1947 was even out.
Why so fast?
His main fear was escalating civil war. He saw things getting out of control, and perhaps less known, he was apparently eager to get back to his Navy courses.
Huh.
Okay. So despite the initial goal of unity, key leaders Nehru, Azad from Congress, Jinnah from the Muslim League, Ambedkar for the Untouchables, Tara Singh for the Sikhs, they all eventually agreed to partition along religious lines.
The speed is just striking. Given that original timeline, what were the immediate results of compressing it like that?
Catastrophic, really. The Radcliffe Line, the border, was drawn up incredibly hastily. It cut through villages, sometimes even houses.
Right.
There was just no time for proper planning. Administration, security, they couldn't cope with the sheer scale of people moving. And what's really poignant, Mountbatten later admitted, he probably would have tried to sabotage Pakistan's creation if he'd known Jinnah was dying of tuberculosis. He thought a united India was more viable without Jinnah leading a separate state.
Just incredible. And the human cost of this sudden, chaotic creation, it's hard to grasp. Estimates are around 12 to 15 million people displaced.
Yeah, forced from their homes.
Yeah.
And maybe up to 2 million deaths during the partition violence.
Zillion.
And those are just numbers. The reports describe widespread intimidation, horrific violence, abduction, rape, murder. Official figures suggested like 33,000 non-Muslim women abducted in Pakistan, 50,000 Muslim women in India.
It was just a profoundly brutal start.
Absolutely, laying this foundation of trauma and distrust that would echo for decades.
So Pakistan's very foundation was immediately tested. Internal divisions, external pressures, its first steps were just as fraught. Liaquat Ali Khan was the first PM.
Right, with Jinnah as the first governor general.
Right.
And interestingly, Jinnah actually turned down Mountbatten's offer to be joint governor general for both India and Pakistan. Then Jinnah died in 1948, only a year after independence. That was a huge blow. He was the unifying figure.
Seen as the founder.
Absolutely. A scholar, Maulana Shabir Ahmad Usmani, called him the greatest Muslim since Emperor Aurangzeb. That shows the kind of status he achieved almost immediately.
But the young nation faced huge challenges. India cut off water supplies, withheld assets.
Yes, critical assets. And then territorial disputes flared up with Afghanistan and, of course, India, especially over Kashmir. That started right away.
And diplomatically, it wasn't smooth sailing either. The Soviets weren't keen.
No, the Soviet Union saw partition as a kind of British imperial trick. But Iran, the imperial state of Iran then, was actually the first country to recognize Pakistan in 1947.
And there was a secret offer from Israel.
Yeah, surprising, right? Israel apparently made a secret offer to Jinnah in 1948 to establish diplomatic relations. It just went unanswered. Shows the complex geopolitics. Pakistan also had this ambition. They called it Islamistan, an early bid to lead the Muslim world.
How did that go down?
Well, it faced skepticism from some Arab nations who maybe saw it as Pakistan trying to dominate. And the U.S. and U.K. weren't thrilled either. They worried about a united Muslim bloc.
So that ambition clashed with internal realities pretty quickly. Jinnah declared Urdu the official language.
Which immediately sparked the Bengali language movement in East Pakistan.
Yeah.
Huge protests.
Right, culminating in those tragic deaths in 1952.
Yes, students were killed. A really critical moment for Bengali nationalism. The language issue wasn't just about language, it was identity, autonomy.
Who belonged in this new state?
Exactly. Bengali did eventually get equal status in the 56 Constitution, but, the damage was kind of done.
And even then, the fragility was showing. The 1951 Rawalpindi conspiracy, the first attempted coup.
Yeah, involving Major General Akbar Khan and even the famous poet Faiz Ahmad Faiz. It hinted at the instability just beneath the surface.
So this pattern, conflict, internal tension, it seemed baked in from the start, foreshadowing this cycle between civilian rule and military power.
That brings us right to Pakistan's cycles of governance, starting with the first military era under Ayub Khan from 1958 to 69.
How did that begin?
It started when President Iskandar Mirza imposed martial law. He appointed the Chief of Army Staff, General Ayub Khan, as Commander-in-Chief.
And people supported this, a military takeover.
Interestingly, yes, there was significant public support initially. People were just fed up with the perceived corruption and instability of the democratic politicians before him. Constant infighting.
So a strong man seemed like an answer to the chaos.
For a time, yes. Ayub Khan then brought in the system called basic democracy and a new constitution in 1962.
Basic democracy. How did that work? Did it really give him popular support?
It was a system of indirect elections. Local councils elected at the grassroots level would then elect people to higher bodies who ultimately elected the president.
Ah, so not exactly direct democracy.
No. Ayub Khan won a referendum in 1960 using this system, but it was more of a controlled process to legitimize his rule. He also famously moved the capital from Karachi to Islamabad, a symbol of a fresh start.
His time is often called the Great Decade, right? Economic development, cultural shifts, pop music, films.
Yes, it is celebrated for that. There was significant economic growth.
What drove that? And were there hidden problems?
The growth came largely from agricultural reforms. Industrialization helped a lot by foreign aid, especially from the U.S. and infrastructure projects.
Okay.
But, this is crucial, the growth mostly benefited West Pakistan, and wealth got concentrated in the hands of a few big industrial families.
So inequality, regional disparities.
Exactly. It worsened those divides. So while the overall numbers look good, the benefits weren't shared equally. And that fueled the dissent that eventually brought him down.
His foreign policy was very pro-U.S.
Very much so initially. Pakistan joined CENTO and CETO, U.S.-led alliances. The U.S. even ran U-2 spy plane operations from Peshawar.
Right. But ties with China also strengthened.
Yes, especially after the Sino-Indian War in '62. Pakistan saw China as a useful counterweight to India.
Then came the 1965 war with India, Operation Gibraltar.
Yes, that ended in a military stalemate. The U.S. actually denied aid to both sides during that war. The USSR eventually mediated the Tashkent Agreement.
But the war and its aftermath increased dissent against Ayyub.
It did. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who had been Ayyub's foreign minister, was dismissed in '66 and became a major opposition figure, founding the Pakistan People's Party, the PPP.
Okay.
Leftist students started calling Ayyub's era the decade of decadence. Bengali nationalism was rising sharply too, the pressure built up.
Which led him to hand power to another general, Yahya Khan, in 1969. The second military era, which ended in disaster.
Utter disaster. Yahya Khan did promise general elections, and he dissolved the one-unit program in West Pakistan, restoring the old provinces with the legal framework order of 1970.
And those 1970 elections, they were pivotal.
Absolutely crucial. The Awami League, based in East Pakistan and led by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, won an absolute majority across the whole country.
Right. While the PPP, Bhutto's party, won the majority in West Pakistan.
Yes. And this is where everything fell apart. Negotiations failed.
The West Pakistani elites just refused to hand over power to the Awami League, even though they'd won nationally. Bhutto famously said, Ut hartum, it harham, you over there, us over here.
Yeah. Basically demanding power be split.
What was really behind that refusal, more than just a power struggle?
Oh, it was deep-seated. A mix of linguistic, cultural, economic, political fears.
Yeah.
The West Pakistani establishment, mostly Punjabi and Urdu-speaking, worried that the Awami League's mandate, driven by Bengali nationalism, would totally shift the power balance away from them.
They saw demands for autonomy as secessionist.
Pretty much. They saw it as a threat to Pakistan's unity, justifying, in their eyes, not handing over control. This refusal to accept the democratic result led straight to military action in East Pakistan, Operation Searchlight and Burazal.
Arresting Mujibur Rahman.
Yes, and the Awami League leadership mostly fled to India.
India then intervened, supporting the Mukti Bahini, the freedom fighters. Pakistan retaliated with airstrikes on India.
On December 3rd, 1971, that brought India officially into the war.
And the end came quickly.
Devastatingly quickly. Pakistan surrendered in Dhaka on December 16th. 90,000 Pakistani soldiers became prisoners of war, and Bangladesh emerged as an independent nation.
A profound trauma for Pakistan.
Absolutely, a catastrophic loss. The estimates of civilian deaths vary wildly, from maybe 300,000 up to a much higher, probably inflated figure of 3 million claimed by Bangladesh. And there's still debate about whether atrocities amounting to genocide were committed by both sides. It's still incredibly sensitive.
After that trauma, democracy returned with Zulfikar Ali Bhutto from 71 to 77. He released Mujibur Rahman right away.
Yes, and set up the Hamadur Rahman Commission to investigate the war failures. Bhutto moved fast.
Nationalizing industries, new labor policies.
Big time. Iron, steel, engineering, petrochemicals, cement, all nationalized, reflecting his socialist platform. And the 1973 Constitution was a major landmark.
Declaring Pakistan an Islamic Republic, Islam as the state religion, Shariat Court, Council of Islamic Ideology.
Yes, that was a significant step.
How did that change things? Was it a break from Jinnah's original vision?
It was definitely an evolution. Jinnah's vision, especially early on, often sounded more secular in terms of governance, equal rights for all citizens. But the '73 Constitution explicitly made Islam the state religion.
Pleasing religious parties.
Yes, and cementing that Islamic identity for the state. It set a precedent for religion's role in state affairs that would only get stronger.
And then the nuclear program. Bhutto officially started it in January '72, after hearing India was close.
That's right. Defense spending jumped 200%. It was all about national security, deterrence, especially after the '71 defeat. It felt essential for survival.
Who was involved initially?
Dr. Abdus Salam, the Nobel laureate, was science advisor initially, setting up the theoretical physics group. Then Munir Ahmad Khan, the PAGE chairman, he's often called the technical father of the project.